Well, thank you for coming, everyone, to the Lewis Arms for the 9th anniversary for the Pentyrch UFO. Yay! So, I mean, it's amazing. 9 years it's been, and what a journey we've had, me and Kaz Clark, the bravest lady I've ever met. And it's been an interesting beginning for us. We never really got on. Those who have been following us for years know the story. But eventually we found respect for each other. I came to see that she was not only honest and sincere, but probably the most genuine, honest person in the world, and she'd been through an amazing experience. And it's hard to try and come forward for something like that, but once we started to get all the evidence and put it all together, here we are 9 years later, and what we got now is not so much a recap of all the old stuff, because if you've been on the Pentyrch YouTube page, you know more or less what the evidence is up until that point. But what we're going to do today is present more evidence. I've got something here now, which is Smilog Woods. I want to take a closer look at this because there's more information I've managed to find for this. It's never been seen before, so you're in for a treat, okay? You're the first people to actually see it. So I'm going to start off with this. As you can see, these are the broken trees. That's one of the people. That's David, yeah, the main other witness who was at the gate with Kaz. I just want you to pay attention to how, that's a full-grown human man there. And here you can see these trees, look how thick they are. Unbelievably big. I mean, they're not slim trees, you're talking like it's wider than a man. And they cleanly broke off. 5, 6 trees snapped clean. You can see the fresh colouring on them. And that's one that was on the main road. It came all the way down the bottom to the main road here. And what I want you to pay attention to also, you see these here? You may have seen them before. Those were the broken branches at the tops of the trees, which are like 50, 60, 70 feet in the air at certain places. So whatever's come through has come in at height and at speed. And Kaz and Steve followed this trail on the day itself when the sun came up. And this is where they found all this. Now, I want to just recap quickly. This is a video that was uploaded to YouTube on the 21st of February 2016. Now, I had to search for like 2 full weeks for 8, 10, 12 hours at a time on my computer to try and find this, because it's not very often people who ride the bike trails of Smilog, they upload videos. And if they do, you get like 50, 60 views, and no one can find them unless you really put in the effort. But I managed to find this. I'm just going to show you that the trees were undamaged beforehand. It's going to play quickly. You can see just towards there. Don't worry if you miss it. You can see that's what it looks like there. Again. And there's the main roadblock. Again, there's the trees there. And it's going to go nice and slow. I just want you to know this is what I was looking for. There's no broken trees. There's nothing broken. It's all fine. Meaning at least 5 days before the event, this video proves that that was not the case. You don't have broken trees like that beforehand. So, yeah. And this was, this video shows what it was like maybe in the day or so following. Oscar Green, I spoke with him, and he said that this ramp that people like to jump up and do some insane jumps onto the road with into the trails below, when he got up there on the day itself, or just after, this whole ramp was smashed to pieces along with the broken trees. When I asked him why that was, he said, he thought the council had done it. Well, the council cleaned it up, but they didn't do this. And as you can see, there's all the broken trees over there, look.
Gary. Oh, that's
sorry. Okay. So, I'm just going to play that video quickly. You can see what it looked like from an aerial shot. This was yeah, you can see it over there, look. I just want you to see how we've developed this information. It's not something we made up. You can see it there, look, nice aerial shot. Thank you for having done that. Now, a lot of people are always asking about this strange snow. And we've got video of it, so I'm going to show you the first one. Steve actually shot this. You can see it there, look. You can see the broken trees. You can see the bird marks. You can hear the pellet-like snow hitting the camera. It wasn't meant to snow in this area. The weather charts for that day and for the whole week will show you it was not icy, it was not cold. it's meant to rain or just be clear, but for some reason in Pentyrch Field and in all this area, there's strange polystyrene like snow, which is like pellets if you saw it on the floor. Like someone just laid out a whole bunch of them on the floor. And you can see the bird marks there. I mean, this is just in the day or two after, so it's still really, really fresh, really new. The day after, yes. So that was a really good video, but this one I really like. This one here, again, shows all the broken trees, but you can see it there, look. This one here has been splintered like someone drove a wedge through the middle of it, snapped it clean, and it's about 8 inches in diameter. It's about 8 inches. There's the burn marks again, look. You cannot do that with wind or ram a car through it. You could probably hit it with a truck and still not be able to do it. But yet you've got 6, 7 broken trees, and if you look on the floor, I'll show you some stills in a minute. You can see those bead-like, pebble-like, almost small little polystyrene-sized bits of snow, which are not actually snow. They're like marshmallow. When you pick them up in your fingers and you can squeeze them, they sort of like retain some sort of memory, which is very, very odd. But so indicative of other UFO sightings that have happened where people report strange weather anomalies. And just to show you again, maybe you can see it on the screen. I'd just like to show you that tree again. I mean, look at it. That's about maybe 4 or 5 feet long. And there's 2 of them there. It's been peeled away, and there it is for there. Look, that was recently, just at the end of last year. So it's all grown over a bit now, but I don't know if you can see it here. You can see those white dots, look. Those are like those bits of weird snow on the ground. That's what was happening in the fields of Pentyrch if you went to the area where the hand of lightning and stuff came down. Very, very unusual. Now, this is something you haven't seen before. This is a lady named Sam, and we were up Smilog one time, just looking around, and she said something that I thought was really interesting. She was working in the Lantricent industrial site the night of the actual event, and you've got to imagine, you're in a factory area, industrial site, lots of loud machines, humming noises, air vents, I mean, generators, just loud, you know, you just can't hear anything, but she said she heard the explosion. I mean, you said you're not the only person who heard this explosion in that factory, yeah?
No, I'm not. I will speak to another fella I know who heard it. And when I went out for the fag, because my tech used to come with me to go for the fag about 5 to half past, there was helicopters in the area.
Just after, innit?
Yeah, that would have been in between 5 and 25 past 5 I went for the fag. We heard the noise, we heard the helicopters, but we didn't actually see them until we came out.
So what she's saying there is she's working, heard the explosion, and then it's time for a break. So they've all gone out and had their fag and everything. And the helicopters are still there circling, causing a ruckus. I mean, a lot of people said that went on to like 9 o'clock in the morning. Again, you know, it's just amazing. How can you hear an explosion of that loudness if you've got all this other background noise sort of drowning it out? It just shows you how powerful it was. Now, this is Greg Powell. He used to be, I think, an historian for the National Museum of Wales. And the reason he wanted to come up with this is because he wanted to look at the site himself, and there were other things we were doing that day. But I'm just going to read something here. I found this comment on YouTube recently, and I'll play the video. It says, "Roads were closed off. I live in the area and was turned around by usual way to work and had to find an alternative route. The hospital was affected. I live opposite the woods. I heard 2 explosions. The noise went on to the early hours of the morning. That beat me off. I had to start work at 6, 25 miles away. Who were the people in the purple overalls inspecting the area on the morning after?" So it's not just white hazmat suits, we've got purple overalls now. Where are we? A big question. The military exercise of a built-up area, including a hospital, I think there is a cover-up. Yeah, there is. We've exposed it though. Our local police told us that they did not know what was going on and were kept away by military staff. I am an emergency engineer by trade, or engineer, sorry. Funny when they say the police didn't know what was going on because they were telling people it was an exercise or there was a lorry that was turned over on fire. That's why the roads were closed, and I'll get to that later. Let me just play what Greg Powell has to say.
Well, I used to come in through here probably around 8:30 a.m. By that time, the police had cornered off the road Coedili end.
Yeah,
and then,
Coedili, yeah.
Right, and then the other end, which is Lanley Hall, they'd cornered off the road there. I tried to come through from Lanley Hall then to get back to our area in Tonrebel, and the police actually stopped us from going through there. The police now, no, not the military or anything else, the police. And they said, unfortunately you can't come through here. There's an emergency exercise going on at the minute.
Really?
And I said, okay, not a problem. The next day, he tried to come through the area. And again, they were still taped off and we were not allowed through the area. 3 days, we were not allowed to come through Smilog. 3 days, they'd cornered off the area and we were not allowed to come through here. And that was back on the same dates that you said.
Okay, so certain roads you couldn't go through. Doesn't mean all of them, but certain roads you couldn't. You could walk up there, take a look, because that's what Kaz and her friends and neighbours also did. But why were they blocking off the roads? Now, this is an FOI request that I sent into the South Wales Fire Service. You know, the whole of South Wales Fire Service. This is what you need to look at here. This is the 25th and the 26th of February. Now, if they're attending fires, they log them, they note them. And I just said, can you put it in chronological order and tell me where we went and who did what and when? And when we get to here, the 26th of February, they've gone to Blaenau Gwent, it was a vehicle. They went to Cardiff at 1 o'clock nearly, shed. Then you get to near 2 o'clock in Caerphilly, there was a refuse thing on fire, and then somewhere in Cardiff, there was a dwelling that had a problem. No mention of an overturned lorry. Anyway, and anyone who was going around that night was being turned back because that's what they were saying. And as I like to joke, there must have been a very big lorry. Okay, so we got South Wales Police and Ministry of Defence. Not going to spend too much time on this because Kaz will introduce this later. But it just shows that we've got an admittance from them that no counter-terrorism exercises were taking place by the police, and the Ministry of Defence categorically saying, I love this, there were no programmed air defence exercises in South Wales for the whole of February 2016. So what were you doing here with all that military firepower and air power? Begs the question. Now, I'm going to go over this some more now because you're going to understand where I'm going with this. Now, I've explained why this yellow trail is here. This yellow trail leads all the way back to Lanchester Common by the Smilog at Royal Glamorgan Hospital. And you can see, if you follow it back, that's where it goes. But if you follow it in, it goes right into the impact site. And that's where the impact site is. Remember that bike trail that guy was going down? That's what that blue line represents. Now, this purple one here, what's all that about? I've always wondered about that. I've always wondered. I'm just going to play a little video so you can see that I was doing this stuff that day. It's just ignore that. It'll play in a sec now. It's just me going through all the felled area, and it was hard to get through it because there's lots of deep holes and
In their sanitised felling.
in their sanitised felling where it's all around. Look, I mean, it should have been barren, flat, but it was very hard to get in there. But as I say, I do my homework, I do my research, and I broke probably leg or two during that time. But here's me in the impact site, look, just looking around. There's me with a camera and an EMF detector. Just to, some sort of archive footage for you to see, okay? So why was it there? Now, I'm going to show you this. This is the corner of the road. And this is where the purple trail sort of ended. There's a little bit of it to the left, but I think what's happened is, this helicopter here, now Dave said he saw from his window, and he's got a window that overlooked down to RAF St Athan. This helicopter was making regular trips forwards and backwards, and it would always go over to the area of Lanchester, where the actual Smilog Woods area was. And you can see it was being followed by 2 Apaches that had something underneath the Chinook itself. And it was dropping something off at St. Athens. What was it dropping off? Well, let's take a look. And by the way, that's the seismic signal for the explosion at 421. That's the Apache helicopter that had to make that emergency landing, just so you can recap that. Oh, let me go back. Yeah, this is our friend again. He said he made another comment actually. The ring of green lights were an Osprey aircraft. Something crashed after being chased. I live half a mile from the incident. It was not an exercise, it was an incident. It was not a valley. It's an open area over a hospital. E3 flying a 500, so he saw it. I think something crashed. People in dark purple overalls. Again, I was told there was a craft crash. I wasn't told him that. And there was a spill in the woods. I could see this from my bedroom window. Something was being chased in a southwest direction. Flanked area, is it? Is that what he says? I heard 2 explosions around 2 a.m. Roads were closed by the police. Public was not notified. Around the police, they knew nothing. Interesting. Did not see any parachute jumpers. That's rubbish. They were dropped on ropes from helicopters, all roads closed. Why make a racket over the hospital in the early hours? Again, who were the people in the Land Rovers driving around the area in the early hours? Not just helicopters, people driving around surveying the area. Why 2 explosions in the course? Why they called it a training mission? I mean, if this was just an ordinary exercise, we wouldn't be having confusion like this. So, now, I don't know if you've seen this. Maybe you've seen it on the YouTube channel, and I encourage anyone who hasn't yet to go back. If you haven't seen the earlier presentations, go look at them, and you'll see how we've come to get to this. But this is 2 witnesses who were camping further up the woods, all the way at the back there, and they like to do survival stuff, you know, outdoors. You know, they're outdoors people. They like to go camping and do other things. But this is a drawing he made. 3 people surrounding a craft that was on the floor, some object, he said. There was all these little brambles and stuff. You can see the bramble bush right there, actually. And this is the road that Kaz and Dave and Steve and others came around and others during that time. I'm going to play a portion of what he got into a conversation with Kaz. I've got it subtitled so you can understand it, but it should come out nice and clear.
So as we're getting closer now, we can hear like people's sounds. So we managed now to get to a point where it crashed on the one side of the road, and then you have the lane, and then the other side, it's like a bit of a bank, and like an incline of trees. Well, there, obviously, we were coming down that incline of trees, and trying to be quiet and sneak in, and we were maybe 30, 40 feet still up in these trees, where we could see down to the road, and sort of the other side where this incident had been. And then we decided, going from thinking it was a crash, or maybe it's, you know, a helicopter plane crash or thing. So we're looking down and we can see loads of vehicles, and they're all parked up. They're parked all here and there. And I can only describe, if a military sort of suit, this I assume, what it looked like. And people, how can I explain it? I don't know what it's called. They're like all in one suit.
Hazmat.
That's the one. And we've seen 2 or 3 people walking around in where this object was. You can see an object, but on my honest truth, seeing it there and bits and things all the way, I can't say to you, I seen a UFO. I can't say I seen a plane. What I could see when we were waiting in the woods, when we walked out, was like a trail, maybe so far behind it, not a long trail from where it was, the object, but there was debris, but I can't specifically remember seeing wings. You know, I'm not saying it didn't have a propeller, but it had a trail of certain behind there, and you can see damage, and all I can remember seeing from where we was looking down into what they were around was, to me, if you picture, you know, like a glass Coke bottle, half of a glass Coke bottle without the top end, that sort of little dip shape, and then back to a bulge at the bottom. I can pretty much remember that sort of shape, but we could possibly say as well, because it looked like it mounted, not so much mounted, but dug in the ground.
Okay, so there's more to it, but that's just a general bit there. He's saying that you can see the old style Coca-Cola bottles, the glass ones, if you remember them. Chop off the top there where you drink out of, and that's kind of what he could see. And I do remember him saying that you think it was a green colour, Kaz?
He didn't see any colour to it, he didn't see any tail sections or wings or anything.
Exactly. So it wasn't a plane or a helicopter, whatever it was. It had to be something coming out of the main large craft itself. And as anyone who will see the full interview or a good portion of it that we put online, those 2 were physically assaulted, thrown in a vehicle, driven away, their phones taken off, and something happened to them and never to go back again. Now that's a training exercise. Kaz is, you know, whatever barrister Clark way that she does. She looked at the rules and regulations. You're not supposed to do that. That's an exercise. You can stand there and have a picnic while they're doing their thing if you want, because it's a public area. You're not supposed to do that. But I think I know what happened to that object. Because remember what I said? The Earth did something to say nothing? This is a website called Political, I think that's how you pronounce it. Politicite, there we go. It says 2 stories. exclusive UFO shot down over Wales, taken to American Air Base, claimed to US Air Force whistleblower. And then again, revealed Ministry of Defence covering up UK's biggest UFO incident. And you can see there that he says that this thing was taken to US Patterson Air Force Base on a Globemaster C-17, which is a big airplane with the turbine jet engines on them. Very big plane. And that's very interesting. I saw this and I was so impressed. But then when I started to share this online as like just to keep people updated with little snippets of information, that website, all these pages were taken down. But luckily, there's a Wayback Machine. If you know the original link, you can actually get a snapshot of what the website looked like, and luckily I got those. So what he's saying is basically consistent with what you're going to see next. Now, this is interesting. Now you've got Prince Charles, now King Charles, Prince William and David Cameron all in South Wales area on that very same day. Now as far as I understand, right, as their security goes, they're not supposed to have 2 or 3 high value cabinet or royal or anyone who's really up at the upper echelons of the government and pyramids of power, but yet all 3 of them are in Wales on the 26th of February. You can see the dates right there. And then what's going on then? Why are they here? Because this plane, ZE-700, is a royal charter plane out of RAF Northants. This plane is never, very rarely, hardly ever comes to RAF St Athan. It will not come here unless it's got a really good reason. Its code name is Kitty Hawk, and I want you to pay attention to the tail number because I think I know what happened to that green or that object that the 2 people saw. Now, pay attention to this, right? Because any of you who know how to take a one-flight radar 24, you can see the transponder codes of planes specifically to each individual airplane. I don't have those, but what I have is just as good. Anyone ever heard of an ICAO code? Now this is something like a plane has to do or a helicopter has to do when it's flying at a certain point on the globe. You enter a code, it tells you where you are and where you're going. It's kind of like if you've got a phone, you know, like Merthyr Tydfil's code is 01685, Caerphilly's 02920, where I'm from it's 01443. So I know that's that area, right? This is sort of similar. Now, you can see here, 26th of February, ZE-700, that's its code right there. And 7643 means Super Domestic UK to USA. So it lands at RAF St Athan, and then takes off not long after, and then goes to America. Like the green, that object that was taken to America. Interesting. And then the very next day, this again here, you can see the 27th, yeah, where is it? There it is. That's its code right there. It's coming back home now. I don't know who was on that plane. Maybe one of the royal family got on board, maybe David Cameron got on board, or maybe someone, maybe they just came to inspect it, but somebody wanted them to know they knew something was here.
It had to be a member of the royal family.
Yes. Okay. So, right. Again, that's interesting because if you go to America in 2016 and you're someone like the King or the royal family, or you're going to be seeing President Barack Obama. And what's interesting is 2 months later, he's taking a trip to Africa. But along the way, no G7, no UN, no NATO summit, but he's coming here to see David Cameron and the royal family. And it makes me wonder, why would you go all the way over there? And why would you come all the way back? Why would you come over here if not for any one of these? Because that's typically why a president normally visits, do they not? That's usually why they come here. And it just makes me wonder, did he come here to discuss what happened in Pentyrch? I think he did. That's just me. But that's kind of what I've got. I'm just going to go into a little conclusion. You can see that multiple broken trees, not damaged by wind, but snapped clean. Of course, elevated EMF radiation only in the areas of interest that I've already laid out for you. Strange snow, weather anomalies, very, very consistent with strange UFO activities. 2 explosions were heard by the local community, as you saw. Unauthorized road closures, yet no police or military exercises present. Smilog woods closed and something airlifted to RAF St Athens, as David has testified. The politicite whistleblower says the object was taken to US Air Force Base. ZE-700 follows that plane across the Atlantic Ocean, with the top brass being in the one area where they shouldn't really be all bunched in like that. The 2 witnesses who saw the object, and again, hazmat suits, and now we've got purple suits by the looks of it. And then we've got Obama, again, coming over to the UK to visit the royal family and the Prime Minister. Again, nothing, they're not discussing anything militaristic, but
It's an unannounced visit.
it's more or less an unannounced visit, yes. And again, you know, was Obama visit a cover to talk about UFO object from Smilog Woods? Sort of an updated briefing, whatever. That's basically what I would say happened, because there's no other reason I can find. I have looked. But again, you know, you've got the military, unannounced, you've got the police, who don't seem to know, but yet they're blocking off the roads. And you've got people being assaulted and all this other stuff. So, you know, you take a closer look at Smilog Woods on its own, I would say it's an incredible UFO case, but you add on to it the Pentyrch, what happened over there with Kaz and David and everything else that we've done. What can I say? This happened. It's real, the timeline fits, and the evidence goes with it. So thank you very much.